I know that I got my job at ANU through that activity. They would never have known I existed if I hadn't have been out there sharing my reading, blogging or whatever. But I'm interested in what some of our panelists think of this, this territory between private and public, and trying to make their blogging activities positive and actually leveraging their career. So,
Okay, I'm going to come at this from a completely different angle, because I suppose the one thing that I did that was positive was to come up with an idea and then talk about it online. So I think, just coming off the back of your comment, Inga, the thing that I like doing online, that I find the most positive, is putting a half-baked idea out there and then having a discussion about it. And I think that that can suddenly kind of open up your approach to engaging online, because we're trained throughout school and university generally to work on something until it's finished, and then only show the world when we've finished it. Quite often you don't show the world, you just show your tutor. Whereas I think that the real interesting aspect of the way that online networks can work, and I'm talking about this kind of engaging with others, is the opportunity to be part of a flow of discourse, and the opportunity to kind of push knowledge forwards. So for me, that's the most positive aspect of it, and that's the thing that I enjoy the most, is the idea that I can put one of my notions out into the world, and with the help of others, develop it, evolve it, and see it travel. So I'm sort of less.
That's really at odds to how we're taught to think about our knowledge and our ideas. It's all about the citation. It's all about making the claim. It's all about sticking your name on something, making sure you were first, and not getting scooped. And of course, that anxiety is very, very present in PhD students. What's your response to that? Because what you're saying actually takes a lot of courage and goes against some cultural norms.
One of the things that helps, I think, is that I didn't do a PhD, so I wasn't trained in that way of thinking. So in that sense, I don't have an academic career, and yet here I find myself. So I consider myself to be somebody who's kind of traveling almost entirely by a different route, whereby I'm more interested in expressing ideas and, as I say, moving knowledge forwards in those online spaces and places. Now, what I'd say, coming back on your question, and I'm very confident about this, is that some people think, well, if you blog an idea, you're giving it away. My experience is, if you blog an idea, you're actually claiming it for yourself. And I've never had any problem that I know of people stealing my ideas. Now, that is partly because my career path, if we're talking in that sense, is not tied to classic institutional structures. And so I don't have to worry about that quite so much. But I recommend to anybody out there, to start putting your ideas out into the world via the digital, because it's a place where you can actually develop those ideas. That principle of being in your own little sort of room and working up an idea until you completely own it and then putting it out there is, I think, just really not fun. And I don't think it's. Yeah, well, maybe. I just don't think that's part of what university should be about. I don't think that's our remit. So, I'll stop there.
No, it's a good answer, David, and yes, but there's some areas of the university where that argument finds it very hard to find traction. Anyway, I'll leave that one behind, because obviously I have issues.
Well, I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree with David, just to make a point that one of the issues I come across by dealing with researchers and PhD students and master's students is this fear of failure, and the fear of that they don't feel that they can say things that they are actually experts in. And I've kind of run workshops where I've kind of asked people to search for stuff on each other on the web to find out what's out there. These are people who are not using social media, finding interviews with themselves on such as even SoundCloud and things like that. And what I try and express to them is, if you're happy for someone from The Guardian to ring you up, or someone to interview for some blog or some magazine, and you'll speak there as the expert, why can't you take control of that message yourself and push it out there? And we don't see that, because it is a fear of failure. It's a fear of, well, I'm not entirely sure if I can say this. So I mean, what I try and do is try and kind of practice what I preach. So I try and pitch blog articles and try and get bits of evidence to show academics that there's another way. So a recent example was I wrote something for the LSC Impact blog, which is an excellent blog for anyone interested in this area to follow, the impact of social sciences. And I wrote a two-piece article on post-publication review, which is a big issue these days because, again, it falls into this area. What can I say publicly? Can I say this? Can I say that? Where we're seeing academics now commenting post-publication on other people's research. And we'd like to think it's all very measured and very balanced and it's a critical response. So I wrote about the various tools that are available and the implications to this, and I got an email a few weeks later from a journal editor, a professor from New Zealand, asking whether I would write something for a special issue on open access for his peer-reviewed journal. So there we see it all flipped on its head. You know, I've written these informal pieces for a blog. I've pitched them. Someone from the other side of the world has contacted me, said I find these very interesting, and will you write me a journal article? So there's an invited journal article. That's great. First person I told was our director of research, who was impressed. You know, something for him, for a professor, not a big impact really. He will be invited to do things all the time. But for me or people of my like, that's quite a big step forward, I think, and it shows that the social media and these elements such as blogging can kind of get you in the back door. It gets you heard because if you're not engaging, if you're not having a conversation, then no one's hearing you, and you don't exist in their eye line. And I think it's about bringing you into people's eye lines that you do know about a particular topic. And
it's really interesting that you're saying both of you, I mean, are talking about basically just extending what you would normally do as an academic into these online spaces in maybe tentative ways or unfinished ways. So
yeah.
It's challenging already that notion that somehow social media sits aside or separate to everything else you do as an academic.